third world country within a first world country. The white, so it was a negotiated settlement between the ANC and the apartheid government, where the whites owned the economy and blacks sought political and civil rights. So today you see the whites still are the owners of the economy, the Afrikaners and the British, whereas the blacks just have political and civil rights. And so what Bantu education is that it was tribalism. So before the whites conquered South Africa, tribalism was good, but the African government made tribalism into a bad, negative thing. They used the tribes for guesswork, for slave labor. Black indigenous became guest workers. That's how South Africa formed its independence. So Bantu education was a system where they taught only indigenous language to the black indigenous population, whereas the white population were taught English and Afrikaners. And if you knew English and Afrikaners, you could get by in South Africa. If you didn't know that, you had no right. You couldn't own anything. You couldn't even communicate with the white public. And there was a separate development. The Afrikaner government thought if he had separate development, blacks would achieve. So they lived in townships. They had their own education system, Bantu education system, whereas the whites had the better education system, lived in the downtown Cape Town with the mansions, and they had more money. And this is just not when apartheid started post World War II. This 500 years of white European colonialism. And so after apartheid ended in 1994, you have the black indigenous population finally getting independence, but you still have the white population with this accumulation of wealth that they developed over 500 years, and this black population with no wealth. And so the black population now in South Africa is now gradually starting to build up their wealth, since they have this political and civil rights. But like I said, whites still own the economy. And so that's why it hasn't changed.
I just have a quick question. Thank you for you mentioned something that you called fundamental pedagogics, the idea that black schools in South Africa are educated just enough. I guess you mean sort of like basic literacy, just enough, but there's no critical thinking. Is that an analytic that you use currently, or you're talking about during?
Yeah. I was actually talking about during apartheid that the fundamental pedagogics. So somebody actually wrote about that. Fundamental pedagogics that the curriculum has to. It's more like the traditional curriculum, more like the behavioralist curriculum that was perpetuated by people like Ralph Tyler in the United States and around the world. When Ralph Tyler supported that, and he became a consultant to the Japanese government, and that book went around. But then in South Africa, it was even dumbed down, in terms of you got to talk Afrikaans. And hence the 1976 uprisings of students says, you are giving us inferior education. So it's more like in Nelson Mandela's words, and I quote, the institutionalizing inferiority. That's what he says.
Do you think the current racism that you're still documenting in schools supports that still?
Actually, I didn't answer your question fully now. I see. Post 1994, we adopted another form of the neoliberal curriculum, not another, but a neoliberal curriculum, which is not fundamental pedagogics. The outcome-based education that's actually was sold by William Spady those who know William Spade's work, he did a lot of consulting in South Africa with the Southern government. We didn't like it, and now we're in something called Plan 2005, which is also rooted on the principles of outcome-based. And think about outcome-based education. It's more like you're an assembly line, basically. That's what it is. Thanks.
And the last question, is that racially divided? All kids in South Africa are dealing with outcome-based, or is that more racial?
Absolutely, all things. The thing about that, if you think of Lisa Delpit's work talking about if you educate children not to be critically aware of their surroundings, then you are actually denying them quality education so that they won't be able to question, for example, the inequalities in their surroundings.
We have time for like one more short one.
Thank you for your very informative talk. You mentioned in the part about the fracturing of the alliances. I've been traveling the United States, creating circles of nonviolence community collaboratives. I've been watching in the past 3 decades, since I was an undergraduate student, a fracturing of the civil society into distinct projects, whereby so much attention people who are engaged in, whether it's environment, human rights, peace, justice, whatever the civil society struggle, people are so focused on their own project that they don't recognize that we are in the same boat, regardless of cause. And so this is that's why Noam Chomsky is the honorary chair of this project. But I'm wondering about if that fracturing of the civil society that we see in this country, in part as a result of the neoliberal policies after Reagan, is that the same thing in a smaller scale happening in South Africa? And if so, are there any solutions that you know of that could be helpful? Thank you.
You have asked me the most difficult questions I've ever been asked in my life, but I'll try to answer. It's interesting how you call it the fracturing of civil society, and if you look at the campaigns right now, in order to win the state, you have to win the civil society. That's why people are campaigning from city to city or state to state and wanting to get the vote from the civil society, right, in order to get to the state. And I totally agree with you that with neoliberal influence, it fractures that because it gives you the message that if you work hard and the field is level, the competition is going to help solve everything. You're going to compete then, and once you compete, if you do your work, then that means we are all equal.
In other words, divide and conquer.
Probably you could use it though in those terms. But my focus in South Africa is very much related to that. But I'm looking at the African National Congress, the Pan-Africanist Congress, the AZAPO, with student organizations, the SRCs, when I was at college, when we went to prisons, I was following, not in the front, but part of that. The slogan was, an injury to one is an injury to all. So there was no fractured alliances at that time. It could be students who belong to Basel when they are arrested. There's going to be a march on campus, right? It could be a student belonging to SASCO. There's going to be a march on campus to get those students released, right? And you're risking, I mean, if you're standing in a bus and you're going to see a SWAT in Durban, and the bus is full, you are right in front. When that bus stops, everybody pushes you out and you just fall on the big rifle. You know, it's so scary, it's terrifying, you know, it touches you here. But that was those alliances which are no longer there. That's what I was trying to say.
Thank you. And what, those of you